ladies and gentlemen, you have been reading in your newspaper, in the magazine, and all over on TV about the obesity epidemic in America. I mean, over 50% of kids today are approaching that are overweight. Is the obesity epidemic in any way related to what we're talking about?
Absolutely. And I really want to point out here that a lot of it is related to diet. And we have to realize that what our kids are eating. And you know, in my clinic, when parents bring their kids in, I make them track their diet. Every meal, what time they ate, did they have a mid-morning snack, a mid-afternoon snack, and what they had for an evening snack. And we have to realize that you parents, you need to know this. What you put on your table, your children are going to eat. And I hear a lot of parents a lot of times saying like, well, little Johnny won't eat this or he won't eat that. Let me tell you something, little Johnny will eat it. If he goes to bed hungry one night, he's not going to starve. If he gets up the next day and you put something on there that's healthy and nutritious, eventually he will eat it. The ideal thing is to start these kids out when they're babies and to have them eat properly, eating the right foods, getting the fruits and vegetables to 5 to 9 servings in. You know, and they really need to do that. But the diets are contributing to the obesity factor, because these diets that are high in processed carbohydrates and sugars are going to actually be affecting their chemistry and actually change their physiology, which is actually going to make them obese.
Wow. We have a problem in America with the way we eat, the way we have institutionalized eating in schools, in offices. I mean, a lot of the things that we put in our mouth and chew and swallow, we shouldn't be doing that.
Absolutely. And hopefully the education part of this and educating the public on how to eat properly will help things. And you know, looking at the schools is a great example. Plus we have to realize that these kids with ADDs and learning disabilities, a lot of times they may have sensitivities or allergies to food. And when they eat these foods, they actually can cause rage or violent behavior, and they really think it's the individual child, when in all reality it's not. And the National Allergy Research Foundation will actually show you pictures where they put a little drop of an allergen into a patient's mouth, and they'll be ripping things up with vulgarity and rage and violent behavior. And then they give them an antidote, and an hour later, the child's sitting there like he's perfectly normal. So we have to realize that the foods can play a role on somebody's physical behavior.
Well, it's not a surprise to moms out there that when you feed kids a lot of sugar, they kind of get hyper. This is part of the general feeling in life, I think.
Well, it is, but on the other hand, if our body is metabolizing sugar properly, it can do that. But if we start having problems like, say, with our GI system, or with our problems such as insulin resistance, where you can't get the sugar into the cell, a lot of times what happens is that you end up with this excess of sugar, and it's going to be stored into fat, and then they're going to become obese. But when they have food allergies, and most people don't know about it because they're not commonly tested for it, but these food allergies can actually stimulate these physical types of behavior.
Okay, so we have the food that you put into your system and what you drink, which water's good, but you didn't really like pop. Why is exercise an important component of good health?
Well, first of all, number one, when we exercise, what we're doing is we're increasing circulation. And what most people don't realize, the number one key thing that exercise does is that it increases the circulation to our brain, especially for elderly people. Young kids nowadays, they're around computers, they're playing these little games all the time. They may not get the active exercise that they need. And there seems to be a big promotion about kids need to exercise more. But you know, if they keep putting the same junk and garbage into their mouth, they can do all the exercise in the world, they're still going to have an obesity problem. So the key is to change your diet and change those healthy lifestyle changes. And a lot of times we have to look at the parents, because you know, what do we eat? We eat what our parents made us as kids, and as adults, those are kind of the same foods that we eat, because that's what we were brought up on. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not that good.
If I sneak a cheeseburger, I'm not going to tell you.
If you do it once a week, I don't have a problem. If you do it, you know, if you're doing it 3 times a day, then that's an issue.
Okay. Well, on the Around the World in 80 Days, our story of the world of alternative medicine, what in the world is acupuncture? Why would somebody want to poke themselves with needles?
Well, we have to realize, and most people don't realize, that acupuncture is one of the oldest and most commonly used medical procedures in the world. out of any medical procedure in the world. It's been around for over 2,000 years. It was originated in China. And basically in traditional Chinese medicine, it is based upon two inseparable and opposing energy pathways. And they're actually called the yin and the yang. And basically, a lot of people, for this sounds like really voodoo and they never heard of this, but it's been around for 2,000 years, and this is the core system of traditional Chinese medicine.
Doctor, what is yin and yang, and how does it relate to acupuncture?
Well, as I said, you have to realize in traditional Chinese medicine, there's two opposing forces that are basically inseparable, the yin and the yang. And basically the yin is related to cold or slow, whereas the yang is more related to the hot and the excited and more active. And so what happens is that they have these two energy forces. And when traditional Chinese medicine, what they're saying is that if there's an imbalance in these energy pathways, or what they call qi, which is energy, if there's an imbalance in these energy pathways, it can affect other pathways. And they can actually, the stagnation of energy or too much energy down a pathway can actually stimulate an organ or gland and actually maybe cause it to not function properly.
This kind of reminds me of cartoons I've seen where the little cat's talking, you know, or the cat's listening to a human being, and the cat, it just goes blah, 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 blah. Kitty, do you want something to eat? And then blah, 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 blah. I don't know that I understand this yin and yang thing, but let me ask you this. Is there validity to this Oriental view of medicine? I mean, is yin and yang real in your opinion?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. And there has been studies that shown that acupuncture, you know, and most people think, well, how can you stick a needle in my toe and that's going to affect something else where in my body? Well, what they did is they actually did a study where they did stimulate an acupuncture point in the toe, and they did an MRI, and they saw the brain light up for that particular area. So there's studies out there that show that acupuncture works, and it can change the chemistry of the brain, and it can actually help a lot of patients with certain conditions and a lot of patients in pain.
When we take a look at medical treatment around the world, in Asia and Europe, a lot of different countries, it's an interesting point that oftentimes Western medicine, allopathic medicine, is right alongside of and integrated with some of this Oriental. So, you know, it's interesting for Americans. We have a view of life, we have a view of medicine, but there are other views of life and other views of medicine. And according to you, they have validity. So that's acupuncture. Now, what is herbalism? Now, a lot of drugs, I think, are actually based on herbs. I mean, herbs go back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. You know, as an example, I think a bark of a tree works like aspirin.
Yeah, that's correct. It's willow bark, and basically we have to realize that some of the pharmaceutical agents out there basically came from herbs. And there's over 7,000 modern medicines in the Pharmacopoeia book that actually shows that they actually came from herbs. So we have to realize that herbalism basically is the traditional medicine where they actually use plants or plant extracts. And basically we have to realize that they use these things to help a particular function or a process in the body. And most people don't realize that we have right in our kitchen cabinets, we have herbs that have medicinal compounds in them, such as ginger and turmeric and certain spices that we may use, and they have, you know, medicinal compounds in them.
So you look at herbs as a legitimate part of medical treatment?
Absolutely. I use them on a daily basis. I do pre and post testing to objectively document that we are making some physiological or chemical change in the body, and we've seen tremendous results with them. And you don't have to take my word for it. There are literally thousands and thousands of studies out there that shows the effectiveness of herbs in certain conditions.
Now, I do want to mention that in northeastern Ohio, you do have a radio show that you do every week on WNIR 100.1 on the FM dial. It's on from 10 to 11.
That's correct.
On Sundays. What's on the show?
Well, who knows? It's just like this show. Whatever they ask me, it's a call-in talk show. I usually try to discuss different topics to educate people on different subjects and to explain how their body actually works and how their chemistry works. And basically, it's a call-in talk show, and people can call in and ask me any health question they want. Now, granted, I'm not going to know the answers to all of them, and if not, I will tell them so. But if I know the answer, I will definitely give them my opinion on it.
Great. I've never had a question he didn't know the answer to for him, just so you know. I'm in a hunt for some as well. I'm going on a hunt for questions you can't answer. This one you probably can answer. What is homeopathy? Now, that was big back in the 1800s and early 1900s. Not so strong in the United States today, but other countries, it's still there. What is it?